Missed you all last night in Delhi. So happy to be back. It's amazing. As I was saying in the Aarti, we don't even realize what a blessing it is to be here. As I was driving back from Delhi today, we were making wonderful time. Yesterday we got stuck in all kinds of traffic, but today we were making wonderful time. And I knew I'd be back by satsang, but I had sort of imagined I was going to arrive just in enough time to use the restroom and maybe have a glass of water just before satsang. And as we were going, I started to get this idea. It began as just a little seed that I might actually reach in time for Aarti. And as the time went by and it kept looking like, wow, I might actually reach for Aarti. Now I've been here 25 plus years. I've been here 25 and a half years. I have no idea how many Aartis I've done. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. But as we started getting closer, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm looking at how far we've got to go, and I'm looking at the estimate that Google Maps is giving me, this possibility starts to get more and more concrete. I start thinking, wow, I'm actually going to make it. And it was so sweet to watch myself, just that, the physical, neurological body, the heart start to beat, and this excitement of like, yes, I'm going to make it. And just as we were on the back jungle road, we're coming, and right in front of us there's this car going very, very slowly. As, to be honest, cars really should on the windy jungle road. Nonetheless, I found myself doing something that I never do. I'm always the one saying, slow down, slow down. And I found myself saying to the driver, is there any way you could honk your horn and pass him? I got to get to Aarti. And as we pulled in and I could still hear them doing kirtan, meaning it hadn't started yet, it was such an excitement. And it was so sweet because we take things for granted. You experience something enough times or for a long enough period of time, and you start to take it for granted. And it was such a sweet experience that I had today of refinding that, just super excited, like, yes, we're gonna make it. Being inside me. So it's always a wonderful blessing to be re-reminded. We know it, but to be re-reminded of all of that we're so blessed with. The people in our lives, our loved ones. The fact that we've got a roof over our heads, the fact that there's running water coming out of our taps. I mean, how many of us really think about that? There's just so much to be so grateful for. So it's always wonderful to take a moment and just reconnect with how blessed we are. And beginning as always with a question from our beautiful online, energetically connected family. Are there gray areas in the world, or is everything black or white? I'm not sure there's anything black or white in the world. I mean, I guess the only thing that you could say is, in that way, is the presence of God. Right? Now, of course, that's not black or white. That's just there. No color, every color, totally irrelevant colors, doesn't matter. But the presence of God is the only thing that's definite, non-negotiable, never changing. Otherwise, even things that we think of as definites. So just the other night, we had some young kids here, and I forget what the question was, but I remember saying, so if I take a knife and stab somebody in the heart, is that good or bad? And naturally they said, bad, bad. And I said, well, what if I'm a doctor? What if the person's having a heart attack? And I'm a cardiac surgeon. And if I don't operate, they're going to die. Then suddenly the kids were like, oh, good, 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 very good. Now, you take something as theoretically black or white as taking a knife and ramming it into someone's chest. And you realize, well, there isn't even black or white with that. Whatever we take, it changes based on time, place, situation, except the presence of God. Even scientifically, I love, those of you who are new to satsang may not know that I love science. And I especially love where science and spirituality overlap. Where science tells us something that spirituality has been telling us for thousands of years, then science discovers it. Suddenly it's true. But my feeling always is, it doesn't matter what path people use to access the truth. If they're able to access the spiritual path, wonderful. They have thousands and thousands of years worth of wisdom and truths to guide them on the path. But if people need science, no problem. Science is slowly catching up in a handful of ways to spirituality. And one of the ways that I really love is, spiritually we're taught you create your reality, right? We've all heard that said in a variety of different ways. What you see, so becomes. Jaise drishti, vaise shrishti. As is the sight, so is the creation. Science now has something they call the observer effect. Now, if you go back through the recent history of physics, when I was studying physics in school, there were two types of things. There were waves and there were particles. Particle was matter, mass. A wave was energy. Distinct, separate. Interact as per a variety of different equations, but they are separate. Then suddenly quantum physics started telling us, well, actually, sometimes waves become particles and particles become waves, and there's this fluidity between them. And that was really beautiful. Now they've come up with something they call the observer effect. And that's even farther into the spiritual realm. And the observer effect says, actually, whether it's a particle or a wave depends on who's looking. That actually the act of being observed changes the behavior of particles and waves. I mean, think about that from a science perspective for a moment. You are creating your reality. That which we are seeing through our sight, we are creating. There's a lot of other examples I could give you about that, but I won't right now. This is all to say that nothing is black or white. I mean, even the very fundamental building blocks of creation, matter and energy, even they are not so black and white, it turns out. Even they are in a constant state of not only change, but openness. Openness to the one who is watching. But I wouldn't say everything's gray. What I would say is everything is being co-created with us, with the situation, with the time, with the moment, with what is required. All that is unchanging, constant, is God. Before I take the next question, just another piece about that, because as we're looking for certainty in our lives, it gives us this opportunity to say, rather than drive myself crazy, trying to figure out and manage the world in such a way so that what I want happens, rather than trying to figure out how to micromanage things around me so that I can be happy, so that I can be peaceful. The teaching is, well, if you want to anchor yourself in that which is constantly changing, sometimes you'll be happy, sometimes you'll be sad. It's like if you anchor yourself in the waves of the ocean. Well, sometimes you'll go up, sometimes you'll come down. It's the nature of nature. But if what you're looking for is that constant, is that stability, well, the only place that exists is God. But not God only outside of you, the divine inside of you as well. If in the ocean, instead of being bounced around by the wave, sometimes up, sometimes down, you dove deeply into the depths of the ocean, what you'd find is there are no waves. It's constant. I mean, there's fish moving around, but the ocean itself is the same. And so in our lives, when we want to connect with that which is constant, we go deep. We drop deeply within. That soul, that spirit, that consciousness within us is always present. It is that which is constant. Everything else is changing. So we deep dive. Yes, any questions that anyone here may have? Yes.
If God's everywhere, then why is Rishikesh special?
Ah, love it. If God is everywhere, why is Rishikesh special? So God is everywhere, but accessing God requires quite a lot from us, actually. Meaning it doesn't require a certain asana, it doesn't require a certain mudra, it doesn't require a certain mantra. But it requires a lot from us as far as attention, concentration, focus, discipline. You can attain God anywhere. anywhere. But in a place like Rishikesh, what you've got is the energy of the space working in alignment with you. You've got people around you who are on spiritual paths. So instead of saying, hey, Yard, let's go dancing and drinking tonight. Well, there is no discotheque. There is no bar. Chalo? Satsang chale. Right? Chalo Ganga ke kinare baith ke thoda sa dhyan kare. Or kya karoge? So the energy of the place is working with you. You're surrounded by people who are doing yoga, who are meditating, who are sitting in satsang, who are praying to God. In a lot of the world, when you say to someone, how are you? You're very likely to get an answer that sounds something like, oh my God, don't ask, I need a beer. In Rishikesh, you're much more likely to get an answer like, Sab Ganga ki kripa. It's all Ganga's grace. And we are affected very deeply by our association, by the power of our association. We are energetic transmitters and energetic receivers. And when we're surrounded by people saying, oh my God, what a day, give me a beer, it impacts us. And when we're surrounded by people saying, and people who have nothing in so many ways, people who are so far below our standard of poverty, but to them everything is God's grace. Well, that changes us. It changes how we think. This is why in the Hindu tradition, in the Buddhist tradition, the power of satsang, the association of truth, is so important. It's why when we speak about the Sangha, it's so important, right? Out of the three things in Buddhism, the three places of refuge, Buddham Sharanam Gacchami, I take refuge in the Buddha. Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami, I take refuge in the Dharma. And Sangam Sharanam Gacchami, I take refuge in the Sangha. Because as the Buddha, as the Dharma transforms me, so does the Sangha. So in Rishikesh, you're much more likely to get a Sangha that is walking toward God, rather than a Sangha that is heading to the nearest bar. And also, just energetically, there is an energy that is here, a power that is here, that has been here since what they call time immemorial. I mean, if you go back to our scriptures, this is the place to which Lord Ram came. Lord Ram did his sadhana just about an hour and a half north of here in Devprayag. This is the place to which, whether you look at the Ramayana, whether you look at the Mahabharata, all of the divine incarnations, their family members, right? Bharat Mandir, it's just across Ganga. All of that is being done. That sadhana was here. They were already coming here. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, this was the place to come already. So there's an energy here, sacredness. There's a reason that Ganga, when she came on earth, came here first. right? She could have flown anywhere. She just eventually had to reach the ashes of King Sagar's descendants. She could have taken any path. She's the goddess. Why did she flow here? So there's an energy, there's a power here that drew Ganga, that drew Bhagwan Ram to this place. And then, of course, you've got thousands of years of people coming, sages, saints, rishis, seekers, pilgrims, coming and meditating. And so the energy just keeps building and building and building and building. But what I can tell you is that that which you experience in Rishikesh, you get to take home with you. So it's not, I had the experience of God in Rishikesh, but now I've got to go back to Delhi, to Mumbai, to Manhattan, to London. This is a place very conducive to that experience. But then it stays with you. Yeah, keep coming back, charge your batteries, we're always here. But it stays with you. Beautiful, yeah. Yes.
It's something similar, but lately it's becoming very difficult for me in my country to find interesting people to speak. And I'm becoming a little bit lonely. My friends are telling me, what's happening to you? You don't come with us.
Yeah.
So how can I deal with that?
Beautiful. So remind everyone where you're from.
Uruguay.
Yes. So she said in her country, Uruguay in South America. But of course this is true all over the world. I just wanted us to know, our sisters and brothers with whom we're sitting here. She said in her country it's become really quite difficult to find people, to find a Sangha. She said her friends are saying, why don't you come with us anymore? Why don't you spend time with us anymore? And she's feeling lonely in the looking for that Sangha. And yeah, that's true. And it is sad. Because we need that association. And the internet obviously has its own problems, its own challenges, its own way that it can bring us into that proverbial rabbit hole of so many meanings. But it also has a power which is to connect with people you might not necessarily know and with whom you might not necessarily bump into at the local cafe. And what I would say is, I would hope that there might be a way, through using the power of the internet, to find people who are meditators, who are interested in satsang, who are interested in kirtan, who are lovers of God. I know they exist there. And if you're listening to this and you're from Uruguay, you're part of our satsang community, leave a note. Leave a note here. Because, yeah, we need to build you a community that's there. And this is true for everyone everywhere. We need to find that community. And of course, the easiest way to do it is you go to places where people are doing what you like to do. You know, people a lot of times will say things like, well, I don't want to be with people who go to bars. But where do they go to meet people? Bars. And you think, well, if you don't want to hang out with people who go to bars, why do you think that you're going to meet the people you want to hang out with in a bar? right? Then stop going to bars looking to meet people if the people you want to be with are people who don't go to bars. Find places that you do want to go. Meditation, a mandir. I would imagine there must be a mandir. The mandir must have kirtan. The mandir must have meditation. The mandir must celebrate holidays. Now, you're not going to become necessarily close friends with everybody there. But if you visited enough, inevitably you will find people. Indians are very, very, very hospitable. And they love sharing with others, especially with others who might not necessarily know the culture or the customs. So if you started going to mandirs on holidays, for arti, for kirtan, you'll find people. And slowly, slowly, slowly a sangha will build. There must be people who meditate together, who aren't necessarily part of a particular lineage, but just who meditate together. Go and meditate. Or you know what? Start your own. I mean, use the power of the internet. Start your own. In the beginning, it may be you and yourself. But I mean, really, just for example, whatever social media you're active on, sit down in front of your phone, go live and say, I'm meditating today, and here's where I'm meditating. And I'm going to meditate this time, this day, every week, in this place. Today may be a little late for you to come and join me, but join me next week. There will be people, your country people, are connected with you in some way on social media. Next week you may have 2 people show up. Keep doing it. Tell them to tell their people. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And the truth is, you don't need 100 best friends. You really just need 1. But, if you have 2 or 3, it's better than 1 is busy. You've got other people you can do things with. Don't worry about the size. If you've got 3 people with whom you can meditate, with whom you can engage in satsang, listening to things online, then talking about it, sharing it, with whom you can go to the mandir, it's all you need. And until then, we're here. It's not as good, I know, as in person, but at least you've got a virtual sangha in the meantime that the physical one builds. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening this evening. Tomorrow is International Women's Day. So why not get started the evening before? It's a time of celebrating, honoring the women in our lives. Our wives, our mothers, our daughters, our sisters. The women in our workplaces, the women in our communities, the women from whose shops we buy things. And also the Divine Feminine in all of her sacred forms, in her form as Mother Earth, Mother Nature, Mother Ganga. Get started early. How do we honor and celebrate that presence of the Divine Feminine, in all of her beautiful forms. And as the moon rises tonight, as the sun rises tomorrow, make sure that you're aligned with that gratitude. I mean, obviously, the most basic, none of us would be here if we didn't have a mother. None of us would be here if that mother did not spend 9 months, at least 5, 6 of them really uncomfortable, taking care of us in the womb. Then taking care of us for so many years, not always perfectly in terms of the most spiritual, dharmic way of bringing up children, but they all do the best they can. So at the bare minimum, we realize, wow, a woman brought me here. And then think about all the women in your life, through whose presence, through whose love, through whose service, your life is made so much richer, so much more meaningful, so much easier. Honor them, celebrate them. Honor and celebrate Mother Earth and Mother Nature, Mother Ganga. Have a beautiful, beautiful International Women's Day Eve. And we'll see you all tomorrow.